and girls, welcome again to your pedagogical space. Let's come back to our work, which will be session 9, which will be today about writing. Now, what's the place of the writing expression part in your exam? You all know that the writing expression is an important activity in your exams. You know, it's a very important part, so it deserves to be done. And as for the mark, it has a big proportion of the total mark of your exam. It's marked out of 5 and 6, depending on your classes. So, and it is feasible. That is, it's not an impossible mission. If you keep calm and think about it with more calm, you will see that you can do your writing expression correctly. So, this is why we must make the effort of writing something, provided that it remains relevant to the topic. We're not going to write about anything that comes to our mind. If I have a topic about my summer holidays, I'm not going to write about January. So, what do we write for? That is, what is our objective when writing? Why do we feel the need to write? Well, we can write to convince an audience. We can write to complain about something. Perhaps I have a problem with someone. Perhaps the electricity bill is too expensive, and I complain to the company about that problem. I can write to ask for information. Maybe there is a center which proposes some formation, and I need information about the dates, the fees, and so on. I can write to apply for a job. You remember the application letter? I can write to sensitize people about a problem or a danger. I can write to invite someone. Maybe I'm organizing a party and I want to invite relatives, friends, and so on. So you see, we can write for many reasons. But in order to obtain a successful piece of writing, that is, if I want to write something correct, we need to go through some very useful steps. The first of these steps is the pre-writing phase. You will notice the prefix pre here, which means before, that is before I write. Which is composed, this phase is composed of brainstorming and drawing a plan, or planning if you want. So A, brainstorming, B, drawing. Now let's have a look at this phase with more details. Let's talk about brainstorming first. So brainstorming and note making, that is taking notes, writing down my ideas. What does this phase consist of? It consists of gathering ideas, that is writing down all ideas that come to my mind in relation to the topic. So brainstorming is a way of gathering ideas about the topic. You write down every idea that comes to you. At this stage, you don't worry about mistakes or about whether the ideas are good or unnecessary. That is, you just write down all ideas that come to your mind. You can gather your ideas in the form of a word map. That is, you write your word, and then you write all words that are related to it, a list or a double list. That is, for example, you are asked to write about advantages and disadvantages of something. You make a list for advantages and another one for disadvantages. Then comes the planning phase. What is planning? Now, we have already noted down our ideas. That is, I have taken notes, I have written my ideas. What do I do next? I need to organize my ideas into a plan. That is, selecting and organizing. What do we mean by selecting and organizing? I decide which of the ideas I want to use and where to use them. That is perhaps I change my mind about some ideas. Perhaps I don't really need them. Perhaps they're not necessary for my topic. So I decide which ideas to use and where to use them. I also choose ideas to talk about first. That is the organization. Which idea comes first, which idea comes next, and which comes last. After that comes the writing phase. The writing phase. Now I have brainstormed my topic. I have organized the ideas I want to write, to use. Comes the writing phase, which starts with drafting, reviewing and revising, and rewriting. As you notice, we have the first step, which is drafting. What is drafting? Well, drafting is the step where I transform my plan into a text. That is, I add verbs, I write complete sentences. I take my notes and transform them into sentences. That is, I transform my plan into a text. I develop my ideas in writing without worrying about mistakes. That is, the correctness of my language is not very important at this stage. I just transform my notes into sentences and into paragraphs. Of course, I make sure that I follow my outline, so that I don't write about irrelevant ideas. Then comes the reviewing and revising phase. Now, we have finished writing our draft. What comes next? Next, you remember we said we don't worry about mistakes in the drafting phase. So now, we're not going to give our copy like that. We're going to revise our copy. That is, I read my draft in order to reorganize. You remember we said perhaps this idea must come first and this one at last and so on. So reorganize, modify, add some ideas or delete some ideas. You remember what we said about that? We said sometimes we notice that an idea is not necessary for my topic, so I delete it. Sometimes I notice that I forgot something, so I add it. So add or delete ideas. I also correct errors that are related to grammar, spelling, punctuation. I also rephrase sentences or expressions which are not clear. You know, sometimes when I read for a second time my copy, I can notice that perhaps an expression is not clear, so I rephrase it. That is, I rewrite it with other words, with another manner. Then comes the last phase, which is the rewriting phase, which consists of making the final corrections. Now, this phase needs some concentration. So this is the step where you read again your draft with more attention. That is, you read it more attentively. You make sure you have corrected the errors you discover in order to produce your final version. Now, let's take an example. Let's talk about this topic, for instance. You see, it's about COVID-19 here, which is the new coronavirus, which abbreviation is COVID-19. So the topic says the new coronavirus, COVID-19, has now spread to many parts in Algeria. Unfortunately, we all notice that a lot of people do not respect the safety measures to prevent further transmission of this dangerous pandemic. You know what is a pandemic? That is a disease which affects the whole world. It's international. There is an epidemic which is local for a country, and pandemic which affects the world on the international level. So, as a member of an association, write an article of about 80 to 120 words to sensitize your fellow citizens about the necessity of applying the barrier gestures to fight against this killer disease. Once we have read our topic, we try to identify the key words. That is, the words which are important for the understanding of my topic. So, understanding the instruction. The instruction, you remember it says, can you come back to the instruction? It says, write an article. It's not a letter, it's not a speech, it's an article. Write an article of about 80 to 120 words to sensitize your fellow citizen. So let's come back to what is important for understanding the instruction. Here are the questions I must ask myself. What is the problem situation? That is, what am I going to write about? What is the problem situation? Who is the target audience? That is, who's going to read my article? What is the objective? What is the task? What is the length of the composition? Now, let's answer these questions. So, what is the problem situation first? The problem is that people do not respect the safety measures against COVID-19. Who is the target audience? Well, the target audience is my fellow citizens. What is the objective? The objective is to sensitize my fellow citizens. That is, to make them aware about the problem. Huh? Now, what is the task? The task is to write an article. How long must be my article? It must have 80 to 120 words. That is approximately 10 to 12 lines. Of course, you can write more. It's not necessary to stick to the number of words. You're not going to count words. Generally, there are on a normal sheet of paper, let's say 10 to 12 words on a line. Now, let's go to the pre-writing and the brainstorming phase now. Let's brainstorm our topic. You remember the topic, which is about coronavirus and so on. Here is the topic. Let's brainstorm this topic. You remember the keywords? Brainstorming. What is brainstorming? You remember, it is writing down all the words we feel or we recognize to have a relation with the topic. So, here is our brainstorming. Irresponsibility of people. You remember the topic says people do not respect the safety measures. So, irresponsibility of people. People should stay confined at home. People must respect social distancing, avoid physical contact, such as shaking hands and kissing and so on. They should also avoid gathering, that is forming groups outside. It is also important that communities take action, reduce the impact of the outbreak and support control measures, keeping distance when going out, when it is necessary, for shopping, for example. COVID-19 is a serious threat. You know what is a threat? It is a menace, to threaten, to menace. So COVID-19 is a serious threat. It killed more than 400. The only way of fighting this killer disease, washing hands several times, staying home, all these ideas have a relation with our topic. So this is what we call brainstorming, writing all ideas that come to our mind in relation with our topic. Now, these ideas, we're not going to put them in our paragraph and say we have written something. These ideas are not in the right order. They need need to be organized into a plan. So we must make our plan out of this brainstorming. Let's go to the plan now. Drawing a plan. That is organizing the brainstormed ideas into a plan. What is a plan? A plan is an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Now, what is the role of the introduction? It is to introduce the topic. That is, I explain the topic. It is to introduce the ideas that are going to be developed all along the composition. That is, I introduce my ideas here, and I talk about them in the body, in this part of the essay. Now the body, as you see, what does it contain? It contains the different ideas, arguments, examples, details, facts, authentic statistics when they are correct. That is, you use statistics only when you are sure about your numbers. And we finish with the conclusion, which comes back to the main idea of the essay. That is, I insist on the main idea of my essay. Now, here is our plan. Introduction, body, and conclusion. Now you will see that these notes, these ideas, are taken from the brainstorming. We can go back to the brainstorming and see this. For example, COVID-19, a serious threat. If we come back to our plan, it's here, COVID-19, a serious threat. Now, you see that we have decided to put this idea in the introduction, because it's the one which corresponds to our introduction. We start with presenting our topic. You remember, the introduction consists of introducing the topic, presenting the topic. That is, it can be defining the topic. Now, what can we say about COVID-19? It's a serious threat. So, it killed more than 400 people. Important that communities take action, reduce the spread of the disease, and then we have finished with our introduction. Let's go to the body. People should show more responsibility. People should stay confined at home, respect social distanciation when necessary to go out, avoid physical contact, like shaking hands, avoid gatherings outside, and washing hands as frequently as possible. Also, wearing face masks. So, you see that here we have the different measures that people should respect. And we finish with the conclusion, which is coming back to the main idea of our topic, which is fighting this disease. Let's go now to the plan with more details. Let's see how notes are transformed into sentences. COVID-19, colon, a serious threat. You see that this is not a complete sentence, and here the sentence. The new coronavirus COVID-19 is a serious threat, full stop. A simple sentence, but meaningful, about the coronavirus. We have simply added the verb here. The new coronavirus is a serious threat. Killed more than 400 people. It has already killed more than 400 people in Algeria. You remember, we are writing about our fellow citizens, that is for Algerian people. Huh? This is why it is important that communities become aware, conscious of the necessity of applying safety measures in order to reduce the spread of this pandemic. So, you see that it's not as difficult as that to transform notes into sentences. The body. Here are the notes. People should show more responsibility. People should stay confined at home. They should respect social distancing. They should avoid physical contact. They should avoid gatherings. They should wash hands as frequently as possible, wear face masks, and so on. Let's come and see how these notes are transformed into sentences. People should show more responsibility in respecting vital sanitary measures. Like we can come back to the plan now, to the body. Yes, people should show more responsibility. We have taken this and transformed it into a sentence. People should show more responsibility in respecting vital sanitary measures. Why do we say vital? Because they are essential, really important. Huh? Following sentence. Now, vital, we're talking about vital sanitary measures. One of these, that is, one of these vital sanitary measures, one of these is to stay confined at home. So, one of the measures that people should respect is to stay at home. This, what is the objective of staying at home? This will reduce the risk of contamination. Now, of course, people should stay at home, but sometimes they need to go out. So, however, when it is necessary to go out, people should respect social distancing. That is, they should, for example, all the time wear face masks, keep at least 1.5 meters away from others. That is, they must keep a distance between themselves and other people, and avoid gathering, that is, forming groups. Another particularly vital measure is to avoid physical contact. That is, when people happen to meet, they should absolutely abstain from shaking hands and kissing. You know, you go out for shopping, and maybe you meet a relative you haven't seen for a long time. On a normal situation, you generally shake hands with him or her, or kiss or whatever. But in this dangerous situation, you should avoid shaking hands and kissing. Last but not least, it is important to remind people to wash their hands as frequently as possible, using soap or sanitizers. Sanitizers are these sorts of liquids we are using these days. People should take these precautions which are necessary to prevent the dangerous spread of the virus. Let's now go to the conclusion. Conclusion is about discipline. The only way of fighting this killer disease. Now we have taken this idea and made a conclusion. Let's read what we wrote. In conclusion, it is important to remind our fellow citizens. You see, we come back to the idea of the topic, of the essay. In conclusion, it is important to remind our fellow citizens about the benefits of discipline, because what helps in these types of situations, it's always discipline. So about the benefits of discipline during these challenging times, that is difficult times. In fact, respecting all these sanitary measures is the only way of fighting this killer disease. Killer disease because it is really fatal, it kills people. Now, let's have a general view of our essay, of our composition. As you see, the three paragraphs are distinct. We have noticed the indentation here. Our paragraphs start with indentation, three distinct paragraphs, the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. So approximately 160 words here, so you can notice that we have not stuck to the idea of 120 words. We can write more or less. It's not very important. So here is the general view of our topic, of our essay, pardon. We come to the end of today's lesson. I tell you goodbye and see you next time.
شكرا على المشاهدة. لا تنسوا الاشتراك في القناة، الضغط على الجرس، الإعجاب بالفيديو.